Case 1. Megan Huntsman. Pleasant Grove, Utah. April 12, 2014. Darren West had just been released from federal prison after serving 8 years for methamphetamine-related charges. He was staying at a halfway house in Salt Lake City, trying to rebuild his life. His parents owned the home where he'd lived with his ex-wife Megan Huntsman at 536 East 200 North. A neighbor had been complaining about a terrible smell coming from the garage for weeks. West and his daughter decided to clean out the garage. He started going through boxes, old shoes, Christmas decorations, random household items packed away and forgotten. Then he opened a small white box wrapped in plastic and sealed with electrical tape. Inside was the decomposing body of a full-term infant. West immediately called 911. Then he called Megan. She told him it was stillborn, that she'd given birth after he went to prison. But that didn't explain the smell. That didn't explain why she'd hidden it. Police arrived with a search warrant. They found 6 more boxes. 7 babies total. 5 girls. 2 boys. All hidden throughout the garage. One box was even labeled, Baby Stuff CCC Megan's. The FBI conducted DNA testing. Every single baby was fathered by Darren West. The medical examiner determined that 6 were homicides. Only 1 was stillborn. Megan Huntsman had secretly given birth to 7 babies between January 1, 1996, and December 31, 2006. She killed 6 of them with her own hands, minutes after they were born. Who was Megan Huntsman? Born February 26, 1975, in Pleasant Grove, she was the eldest child of an industrial painter and a grocery store employee. She seemed like an ordinary Utah girl. She attended Pleasant Grove High School, where she met Darren West. They married in April 1993 when she was just 18 years old. The couple had 3 daughters together who survived to adulthood. 2 were born before Megan and Darren's descent into heavy drug use began in the mid-90s. The 3rd daughter's pregnancy was known to family members, which likely saved her life. It was the secret pregnancies that proved fatal. The murders started sometime in 1996. Megan would give birth alone in the bathroom or bedroom of their home. She concealed every single pregnancy from her husband, her family, even her 3 living daughters. Her small frame apparently helped hide the pregnancies. She'd concealed her first 2 successful pregnancies until the day of delivery, so she knew how to do it. Her method was consistent and brutal. Immediately after birth, she would press her thumbs against each baby's throat until they stopped breathing. In at least one case, she wrapped a black elastic hair tie around the infant's neck to make absolutely sure it was dead. Then she would hold the tiny body for several minutes, making certain there was no heartbeat. After each murder, the ritual was the same. She wrapped the body in towels or shirts, placed it in a plastic bag, put the bag in a cardboard box, sealed the box with electrical tape. Then she stored it on a shelf or in a cabinet in the garage, among the Christmas decorations and old shoes and forgotten household items. A graveyard hidden in plain sight. Between 1996 and 2006, 7 babies were born. 7 babies were killed or died. 7 boxes were sealed and stacked in the garage. During this entire decade, Megan and Darren were deep into methamphetamine addiction. They were also using cocaine and marijuana. Megan was drinking heavily. Her father had committed suicide, compounding her depression. The house was chaos. But here's the question that haunted investigators. How did Darren not know? Detective Dan Beckstrom pressed him hard during interrogation. I can tell that you know about more than what you're telling me. West denied everything. I was so messed up on freaking drugs, he explained. He admitted knowing about some pregnancies, but said Megan told him they were miscarriages. He believed her. One birth even happened while West was watching television in another room. Megan told him she was going to take a bath and go to bed. She gave birth, murdered the baby, hid the body, cleaned up, and went to sleep. He never suspected a thing. Captain Michael Roberts called it the million-dollar question. Police ultimately concluded that West was probably too high on drugs most of the time to notice his wife was pregnant. The Utah County Attorney's Office declined to charge him. They needed his cooperation and didn't believe they could prove he knew. In 2005, West pleaded guilty to federal charges for possessing chemicals used to manufacture methamphetamine. He was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison. He went away in 2006. Notably, the murders stopped when he was incarcerated. No more secret pregnancies. No more dead babies. When Megan moved out of the house in 2011, She left the boxes behind. She left 7 tiny bodies in the garage for 3 more years. Until that day in April 2014 when her ex-husband came home. She was arrested on April 13, 2014, charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder. The evidence was overwhelming. Her own statements, the bodies, the DNA. There was no defense. On February 12, 2015, Huntsman pleaded guilty to 6 counts of first-degree felony murder in 4th District Court in Provo. Under a plea agreement, prosecutors recommended concurrent sentences. In exchange, Huntsman waived her right to appeal. But the judge had other ideas. On April 20, 2015, Judge Daryl McDade held the sentencing hearing. He was the same judge who had signed the original search warrant. He'd seen the evidence. He'd read the reports. He understood exactly what Megan Huntsman had done. Huntsman's family tried to help. Her sister Jamie testified, "Megan is not a monster. She's not evil. From what I understand, she was scared." 2 of Huntsman's surviving daughters submitted letters. "Nobody could guess my mom would do anything like this," they wrote. "No matter what anyone thinks you are a good person." Huntsman herself submitted a statement, read by her defense attorney. "I didn't feel strong enough to be a mother to those tiny babies," she said. "And in some small way I wanted to help them avoid the terrible life I would have given them." Judge McDade listened. Then he rejected the prosecution's recommendation for concurrent sentences. He called it not appropriate. "I really thought I had seen it all until this case came along," McDade said from the bench. He sentenced Huntsman to 6 terms of 5 years to life in prison. 3 consecutive, 3 concurrent. It meant she'd serve at least 15 years before even being considered for parole. The Utah Board of Pardons reviewed her case and set her first parole hearing for April 2064. She'll be 89 years old. She remains incarcerated at the Utah State Correctional Facility. She has filed no appeals. 7 babies, 7 boxes, 7 lives that never had a chance. Megan Huntsman's methamphetamine addiction, her depression, her father's suicide, her troubled marriage, none of it excuses what she did. She killed 6 newborns with her bare hands and hid them in a garage for over a decade. The case shocked Utah. It shocked the nation. It remains one of the most prolific serial infanticide cases in American history. Case 2. Lori Vallow Daybell. October 26, 2018. A religious conference in St. George, Utah. Lori Vallow, a devoted member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, wandered through the vendor area. One booth caught her eye. A man was selling apocalyptic fiction novels through his company, Spring Creek Books. His name was Cha Daybell. Lori approached him immediately. Witnesses said she was flirtatious. She was putting the moves on him. They talked privately. Chad told her they'd been married in a past life. They'd known each other for eternities. It was destiny. That conversation in St. George would lead to multiple murders. 2 children dead. 2 spouses dead. A conspiracy driven by doomsday beliefs and a twisted ideology about zombies and demons and the end times. This is the story of the Doomsday Mom. Lori Noreen Cox was born June 26, 1973, in Loma Linda, California. She was raised Mormon and married 5 times. Her first marriage to a high school boyfriend lasted only briefly in 1992. Her second marriage produced son Colby Ryan in 1996 and ended in divorce in 1998. Her third marriage to Joseph Ryan Jr. began in 2001. They had daughter Tylee in 2002 and divorced in 2005 after an bitter custody battle. In 2006, Lori married Charles Vallow, a businessman. They adopted Charles's great-nephew, Joshua Jackson Vallow, known as JJ. The boy had autism and attended special needs school. Teachers described him as a spitfire who loved to dance. Tylee became his protective big sister. Her best friend later said Tylee joked that JJ felt like her own child. Life seemed normal, but everything changed when Lori met Chad Daybell. Chad was born August 11, 1968, in Provo, Utah. He grew up in Springville. He worked as a gravedigger and cemetery sexton. He self-published apocalyptic fiction and claimed to have near-death experiences that gave him visions of the future. He'd been married to Tammy Daybell for 28 years. They had 5 children together. Chad developed an elaborate belief system involving light and dark ratings for people, reincarnation, and past lives. Central to his theology was the concept of zombies. Not movie zombies. Spiritual zombies. people whose bodies had been taken over by dark spirits. When someone became a zombie, Chad thought, their original soul was trapped. The only way to free that soul was for the body to die. After meeting Lori in St. George, Chad began assigning zombie status to people in their lives. Charles Vallow, zombie, possessed by a demon named Ned. Tylee Ryan, zombie. J.J. Vallow, zombie. Even Chad's own wife Tammy was supposedly possessed by a demon named Viola. The deaths started 9 months after that conference in St. George. July 11, 2019. Chandler, Arizona. Charles Vallow went to Lori's home to pick up J.J. An argument erupted. Lori's brother Alex Cox shot Charles to death. Alex claimed self-defense. Notably, the 911 call came approximately 40 minutes after the shooting. Lori collected on a $1 million life insurance policy. September 8, 2019. The last photograph of 16-year-old Tylee was taken at Yellowstone National Park. She's with Lori, JJ, and Alex Cox. Everyone looks happy. Everyone's smiling. Within 24 hours, Tylee would be dead. September 9, 2019. Alex Cox's phone placed him at Chad Daybell's property in Idaho for approximately 2 hours. That same day, Chad texted his wife Tammy that he'd killed a raccoon and buried it. Investigators would later discover there was no raccoon. It was Tylee's body. Her remains were dismembered and burned. September 22, 2019. 7-year-old JJ was last seen in public, asleep on Alex Cox's shoulder. September 23, 2019. JJ was absent from school. Lori claimed she was homeschooling him now. Alex Cox's phone placed him at Daybell's Idaho property again that day. October 9, 2019. A masked man pointed a gun at Tammy Daybell in her driveway in Salem, Idaho. Phone data suggested it was Alex Cox. Tammy reported it to police, but wasn't seriously injured. October 19, 2019. Tammy Daybell was found dead in bed. She was 49 years old. Chad declined an autopsy. The death was initially ruled natural causes. She was buried within 3 days. November 5, 2019. Just 17 days after his wife's death, Chad Daybell married Lori Vallow in Hawaii. They were giddy. They were in love. They'd waited eternities for this moment. December 11, 2019. Authorities exhumed Tammy Daybell's body for autopsy. December 12, 2019. Alex Cox died suddenly in Gilbert, Arizona. Natural causes. Blood clots. He died the day after Tammy's exhumation. How convenient. But where were the children? JJ's grandparents, Charles Vallow's parents, requested a welfare check in November 2019. Police discovered both children were missing. Lori and Chad fled to Hawaii. When questioned, Lori claimed JJ was with a friend in Arizona. The friend said that was a lie. Authorities obtained surveillance footage showing Lori and Chad removing JJ's belongings from a storage unit and throwing them in a dumpster. His service dog, his clothing, his toys. Everything. Lori was arrested in Hawaii in February 2020. She was charged with child abandonment and desertion. She refused to reveal where the children were. The search for JJ and Tylee became national news. Months went by with no answers. Then, on June 9, 2020, FBI and Rexburg police executed a search warrant at Chad Daybell's property in Idaho. They used cell phone location data from Alex Cox to guide them. Investigators noticed a patch of grass that was shorter than the surrounding area. It measured approximately 4 feet by 2 feet. They dug. Beneath white rocks and wood paneling, they found JJ. His small body was wrapped tightly in black plastic and duct tape. He was wearing red pajamas. He'd been suffocated. In a section of the property Chad called the Pet Cemetery, investigators found over 100 bone fragments beneath a melted bucket. DNA testing confirmed they belonged to Tylee. Her body had been dismembered and burned. They found DNA on a pickaxe in Chad's shed. The evidence painted a picture of calculated murder. Text messages between Chad and Lori discussed death percentages and zombie status of their victims. Chad texted about removing zombies from the world. Lori's son Colby confronted his mother in a recorded jail call. To know that they're gone, and you knew, and my phone is being texted by my little sister, who's not even alive. Lori's trial began April 10, 2023, in Boise, Idaho. Prosecutors laid out the conspiracy, the doomsday beliefs, the insurance money, the elaborate cover-up. The lies to police. The disposal of evidence. On May 12, 2023, after less than 6 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted Lori on all counts. Murder, conspiracy, grand theft. One juror later stated, if there was a face to evil, it was hers. Judge Stephen Boyce sentenced Lori on July 31, 2023. 3 consecutive life sentences without parole. He told her from the bench, you chose the most evil and destructive path possible. You justified all of this by going down a bizarre religious rabbit hole, and clearly you are still down there. Cha Daybell was tried separately. In May 2024, he was convicted of all charges including first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell, J.J. Vallow, and Tylee Ryan. On June 1, 2024, he was sentenced to death. Lori later received 2 additional life sentences in Arizona for conspiracy in Charles Vallow's murder and the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux, her niece's estranged husband. She now serves 5 consecutive life sentences without parole at Pocatello Women's Correctional Center in Idaho. Her appeal is pending before the Idaho Supreme Court. 7-year-old JJ loved to dance. 16-year-old Tylee loved her little brother. They were murdered because their mother and her doomsday prophet boyfriend believed they were possessed by demons. 49-year-old Tammy Daybell was murdered so Chad could marry his cult mistress. Charles Vallow was murdered for insurance money and because he stood in their way. The case captivated the nation. It exposed how dangerous religious extremism can become when combined with narcissism, greed, and a complete absence of empathy. Lori Vallow smiled in her mugshot. She smiled in court. She showed no remorse. Even now, behind bars for life, she reportedly still believes she did nothing wrong. Case 3. Ruby Franke. 8 passengers. The YouTube channel had 2.5 million subscribers. Ruby Franke documented daily family life in Springville, Utah, with her husband Kevin and their 6 children, Sherry, Chad, Abby, Julie, Russell, and Eve. She posted 5 days a week. At its peak in 2020, the channel had over 1 billion views. Ruby offered parenting advice. She showed family activities. She built an empire. But behind the camera, something dark was growing. Ruby was born January 18, 1982. She married Kevin Franke in December 2000 and became a devoted member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In early 2015, she started 8 Passengers. The channel's name came from their family of 8 people. At first, everything seemed wholesome. Family dinners, holiday celebrations, daily vlogs. But viewers began noticing concerning content. In 2020, Ruby's then 15-year-old son revealed he'd been banned from his bedroom and forced to sleep on a bean bag for 7 months as punishment. Ruby posted videos showing her refusing to bring lunch to her 6-year-old daughter at school, saying the child needed to learn responsibility. She filmed herself threatening to behead a child's stuffed toy. Concerned viewers started a Change.org petition reporting perceived abuse. Child Protective Services investigated multiple times. Every investigation was deemed unsubstantiated. The channel continued. In 2019, the Frankes began relationship counseling with Jody Hildebrandt, a licensed clinical mental health counselor who ran a life coaching business called Connections in Orem, Utah. Former clients described the program as cult-like. Hildebrandt allegedly isolated people from their families, labeled normal behaviors as addictions, and encouraged cutting off anyone who didn't follow her teachings. By summer 2020, Ruby was paying Hildebrandt to be her personal mentor. Family members noticed a shift in Ruby's thinking. In July 2022, Kevin and Ruby separated at Ruby's directive. Kevin moved out. In May 2023, Ruby and her 4 youngest children moved into Hildebrandt's 10,000-square-foot home in Ivins, Utah. August 30, 2023. A neighbor in Ivins received an unexpected knock on their door. 12-year-old Russell Franke stood there. He was emaciated. He wore torn socks with no shoes. Duct tape was wrapped around his ankles and wrists, covering severe wounds. The child was clearly malnourished and terrified. The neighbor called 911 immediately. From the call, this kid has obviously been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds. Police responded. They found 9-year-old Eve Franke at Hildebrandt's house. She was petrified, hiding in a closet. She was also severely malnourished. Her head had been shaved. Both children were hospitalized immediately. The investigation revealed months of systematic abuse documented in Ruby's own 60-page handwritten journal. The children were denied food, water, and beds. They were forced to do wall sits for hours. They performed manual labor outdoors in extreme summer heat without shoes. Russell was forced to work outside for weeks with inadequate protection, resulting in severe sunburns. His skin was blistered and sloughing off. Both children were beaten. Russell was bound with rope and handcuffs. When they had wounds, Ruby treated them with cayenne pepper and honey, wrapping them in saran wrap and duct tape. She forced her son's head underwater. The children were told they were evil and possessed. Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt were both arrested August 30th, 2023. They were charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse each. On December 18th, 2023, Ruby pleaded guilty to 4 counts. At the hearing, she stated, "With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty." At her February 20th, 2024 sentencing, Ruby apologized tearfully. "For the past 4 years, I've chosen to follow counsel and guidance that has led me into a dark delusion. I believe dark was light and right was wrong." Judge John Walton sentenced both Ruby and Jodi to 4 consecutive terms of 1 to 15 years each. That's 4 to 30 years total. He told Hildebrandt, "Adults with specialized training, in particular, are supposed to protect children. You didn't do that in this case. You terrorized children." Kevin Franke received sole custody of the minor children. His divorce from Ruby was finalized March 20th, 2025. He remarried in December 2024. Eldest daughter Sherry published a memoir titled The House of My Mother in January 2025. Both Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt are incarcerated at Utah State Correctional Facility in Salt Lake City. They're housed in the same unit, but kept separated. Their first parole hearing is scheduled for December 2026. The 8 Passengers channel was deleted. Ruby's children are safe, but the psychological damage will last a lifetime. Russell and Eve believed they were evil. They believed they deserved the abuse. They were tortured by the woman who was supposed to protect them. Ruby Franke built an empire telling other mothers how to parent. She gained millions of followers. She made hundreds of thousands of dollars. And behind it all, she was systematically abusing her own children in the name of discipline and religion. The case sparked national outrage and renewed conversations about family vlogging, the exploitation of children for content, and the dangerous influence of unregulated life coaches. It exposed how abuse can hide behind a carefully curated online persona. And it proved that no amount of subscribers, no amount of likes, no amount of online success can cover up the truth forever. Case 4. Son Cha Warhola. September 8, 2010. Layton, Utah. Kenneth Warhola arrived home from his job at Hill Air Force Base around evening time. Something was wrong. The doors to his children's bedrooms were closed and barricaded from inside. His wife's son Cha asked him to give her 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. He waited. Then he forced open the door to 8-year-old James's bedroom. Both children were lying on the bed covered with a blanket. Their faces were cold to the touch. Kenneth ran to a neighbor's house to call 911. The home phone was missing. Son Cha Warhola was arrested and booked into Davis County Jail at approximately 4 in the morning on September 9, 2010. She'd killed both of her children, 8-year-old James and 7-year-old Jean Marie. But the case wouldn't reach sentencing for 15 years. Son Cha Warhola was a Korean immigrant married to Kenneth Warhola for 13 years by 2010. Both had prior domestic violence incidents and misdemeanor charges. In the weeks leading up to the murders, police were called to their home almost daily. Son Cha took the children to a shelter at one point, but returned about a week before she killed them. 2 weeks before the murders, Son Cha called the Korean Times of Utah newspaper seeking a divorce lawyer. She told staff member In Zeon Cho Kim she needed a lawyer urgently. She was scared to death. She didn't want to give the children to her husband. She made allegations of sexual abuse against Kenneth. The Davis County Attorney's Office investigated and declined to pursue charges, calling the allegations baseless. On that September night, Son Cha killed both children. The details are horrific. At the sentencing hearing 15 years later, Kenneth revealed what investigators had found. 7-year-old Jean Marie died from blunt force trauma. 8-year-old James was fed poison, likely Sudafed tablets found in a gravy separator. He was tied up so tightly he could only use his teeth to bite his mother in a desperate effort to stay alive. Both children had ligature marks consistent with strangulation. Sun Cha was charged with 2 counts of capital murder. But there was a problem. She had severe schizophrenia. In May 2011, 2 psychologists determined Sun Cha needed significant treatment. Judge David Connors found her incompetent to stand trial. She was sent to Utah State Hospital, where she remained from 2011 to 2017. During multiple review hearings, she was never found competent. In June 2017, Judge Michael Olfin ordered the case put on hold indefinitely. The years dragged on. Sun Cha remained hospitalized. The children remained dead. Justice remained delayed. In May 2019, medical experts finally declared her competent. The case resumed. But during plea bargain discussions in August 2021, her mental state deteriorated again. She couldn't recall details of the plea. She claimed her children's deaths were caused by the government. She was returned to Utah State Hospital. Finally, on June 3, 2024, Sun Cha Warhola pleaded guilty with a mental condition to 2 counts of first-degree felony murder. Almost 14 years after killing her children, she was accepting responsibility. The sentencing hearing took place June 30, 2025. Kenneth Warhola delivered a devastating victim impact statement. He described how James had just made a reading breakthrough and might have become a computer programmer. Jean-Marie excelled at spelling and loved princesses. They had their whole lives ahead of them. You can never fully understand, but you can imagine what it felt like to find out that your children's bodies were in plastic bags stored in your bedroom, waiting to be brought to the morgue, Kenneth told the court. Sun Cha, speaking through a Korean interpreter, said, "At that time, for me, I did not have any choice. That's why it's not fair. I would like to go back to Korea. My sister is waiting for me. No remorse. No accountability. Just excuses." Judge Michael Edwards sentenced her to 2 concurrent terms of 15 years to life. He explained the concurrent sentences reflected her schizophrenia diagnosis and gave the Board of Pardons flexibility in determining her actual release date. She received credit for 5,409 days already served in custody. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Edward Kelly, testified that Sun Cha had become beloved and always sunny at Utah State Hospital. He said she would have been released in many other states already. But this wasn't other states. This was Utah. And 2 children were dead. The case raises profound questions about mental illness, competency to stand trial, and justice delayed. Sun Cha Warhola was clearly severely mentally ill. Her schizophrenia was documented and real. But does that excuse killing 2 children? Does that justify 15 years of delays? Does that make the system work? Kenneth Warhola lost his children in 2010. He didn't see justice until 2025. 15 years of waiting. 15 years of competency hearings. 15 years of watching the legal system struggle with what to do about a woman who killed her children but was too mentally ill to stand trial. James and Jean-Marie Warhola deserved better. They deserved a mother who wasn't severely mentally ill. They deserved a system that could have intervened before tragedy struck. They deserved lives. Instead, they got cold bedroom floors, plastic bags, and a mother who still claims she had no choice. Case 5. Lisa Jo Vanderlinden. Lisa Jo Vanderlinden was trusted by the state of Utah to care for vulnerable children. She was a licensed practical nurse. She'd fostered approximately 40 children over several years. She worked at the Children's Justice Center, which helps investigate child abuse cases. She even served as a trainer for new foster parents. Then she killed 2-year-old Lucas Call. Lucas and his younger sister were placed in Vanderlinden's care in April 2017. Their biological mother, Shelby Call, had a learning disability and low IQ. She'd lost custody. But during regular visitations, Shelby noticed something wrong. Lucas had injuries, major bruising, cuts, a broken arm in an unusual location. Shelby reported these concerns to DCFS repeatedly. She noticed Lucas wouldn't go near Lisa Vanderlinden. He acted afraid of her. But every complaint was deemed unsubstantiated. DCFS took no action. In fact, a civil lawsuit later alleged there were 3 prior occasions where other parents accused Vanderlinden of abusing children in her care. All unsubstantiated. One DCFS caseworker even suggested removing Lucas and his sister from the home. Her superiors chose to do nothing. DCFS allegedly threatened to terminate Shelby's visitation rights if she continued reporting abuse concerns. The message was clear: shut up or lose access to your children. August 4th, 2018. Lucas exhibited behavioral problems during dinner at Vanderlinden's Duchesne County home. Family members specifically noted he had no marks on his body at dinner. They were looking because of Shelby's complaints. Vanderlinden admitted she was mad and frustrated. She removed the boy from the table. Throughout the evening, Lucas vomited multiple times. Other children described Vanderlinden as ornery, mad, and angry. A family member heard a loud bang from the bathroom where Vanderlinden was bathing the boy. After the bang, Lucas wasn't acting normal. He wouldn't walk. Phone records showed Vanderlinden searched for signs and treatment for internal bleeding that night, the same type of injury that would kill Lucas. Despite knowing something was wrong, she did not seek medical attention. She put him back to bed. Lucas Call was found dead the next morning. He was 2 years old. The autopsy revealed he died from blunt force injuries. He had abrasions all over his body: face, head, scalp, arms, hands, stomach, back, legs. A pediatrician determined the injuries were consistent with child abuse. Vanderlinden was charged with first-degree aggravated murder. In March 2020, she pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of first-degree child abuse homicide, carrying 5 years to life. Under the plea deal, she admitted being reckless by not seeking medical care. She did not admit to physically abusing the child. The sentencing hearing took place July 29, 2020. Then Judge Samuel Chiara shocked everyone. He sentenced Vanderlinden to just 1 year in jail, 14 years probation, and a $10,000 fine. He suspended the prison term entirely. 1 year. For killing a 2-year-old. Judge Chiara called the plea deal perplexing. He said his hands were tied because Vanderlinden only admitted to negligence. "We do not know the truth. I don't know the truth of this situation," he said. Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes issued a blistering public response. "A young child is the most vulnerable victim imaginable. The court's decision is beyond disappointing. It's a travesty and undermines the confidence of the public in our justice system's ability to protect kids from abuse and homicide." The plea deal in no way limited the court's power to sentence in a way that would serve justice. The public outrage was immediate and intense. A foster mother, a trainer of foster parents, a nurse at the Children's Justice Center. She killed a toddler and got 1 year. But the story wasn't over. In October 2023, Vanderlinden was arrested again, this time for abusing her 8-year-old adopted son. The boy reported being slapped hard enough to leave a red mark for 2 days. He said it happened more than once. The probation violation brought her back before Judge Chiara. On May 6, 2024, he found her in violation of probation and ordered her to serve the original sentence of 5 years to life in Utah State Prison. She was immediately remanded to custody. Justice delayed. But finally, justice served. Lucas Call's sister was adopted by a different family after his death. Shelby Call never regained custody. A civil lawsuit against DCFS was dismissed in 2023 after Shelby failed to appear in court. The case exposed massive failures in Utah's child protective system. 3 prior abuse complaints against Vanderlinden, all unsubstantiated. Shelby Call's repeated reports of injuries. Ignored. A caseworker's recommendation to remove the children. Overruled. DCFS threatening the biological mother to silence her. Unconscionable. Lisa Jo Vanderlinden was the perfect foster mother on paper. Licensed nurse. Experienced caregiver. State-approved trainer. She'd fostered 40 children. The system trusted her completely. And that trust killed Lucas Call. He was 2 years old. He loved trucks. He loved playing outside. He should have been protected. Instead, he was placed with a woman who had a history of abuse complaints that were swept under the rug. He was left in that home despite his biological mother's desperate attempts to save him. He died alone, in pain, with internal bleeding, because the woman responsible for his care searched the internet for symptoms instead of taking him to a hospital. Vanderlinden will be eligible for parole eventually, but Lucas will never get another chance. His sister will grow up knowing her brother died in foster care. Shelby Call will live forever with the knowledge that she tried to save him and the system told her to shut up. The Vanderlinden case became a symbol of everything wrong with Utah's foster care system. It sparked investigations. It led to policy reviews. It made headlines nationwide. But for Lucas Call, those changes came too late. Case 6. Reina Flores Rosales. Sandy, Utah. February 25, 2019. Reina Flores Rosales called 911 claiming she found her 6-year-old son Norland Cruz unresponsive in the shower. First responders arrived and discovered something that would haunt them forever. Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill had nearly 3 decades of prosecutorial experience. He'd seen thousands of cases. He called this one of the worst child abuse cases he'd ever encountered. Norland had 99 injuries in various stages of healing. Burns on his back and buttocks, broken bones, strangulation marks, evidence of severe head trauma. Despite a well-stocked refrigerator in the home containing expensive food like lobster, Norland was in a state of starvation. Investigators discovered the refrigerator had been secured with a bicycle lock to prevent the child from eating. Police seized Flores Rosales' phone. The evidence was damning. Text messages showed her writing, "I don't want him or love him anymore, and he's going to pay for it." Her own mother had responded, "From a moment of anger you can kill him, and I can't stand seeing the torture that you do to that boy." Videos on the phone captured Flores Rosales screaming at Norland, degrading him. The child expressed fear about punishment in the recordings. Norland hadn't always lived with Flores Rosales. He'd previously been placed in foster care with David Auguson's family. They described him as a rambunctious, energetic, stubborn, friendly, sprightly, playful, bouncy, whirlwind, kind, exhausting, lovable, huggable little boy. He was full of life when they cared for him. But somehow, he ended up back with his biological mother, and she tortured him to death. Multiple reports had been made to DCFS before Norland's death. Neighbors reported hearing constant screaming from the home. Nothing was done. The reports were investigated and closed. Norland remained in that house of horrors. The case went to trial in 2023. The jury heard about the 99 injuries. They heard the text messages. They watched the videos. They learned about the locked refrigerator. They saw photographs of Norland's emaciated body. The jury convicted Flores Rosales of reckless child abuse, homicide, and multiple counts of child abuse. At the May 16, 2023 sentencing hearing, Judge Douglas Hogan delivered the sentence through tears. He imposed 5 years to life, plus additional consecutive terms. The judge stated he had never seen animals treated the way this mother treated her son. Judge Hogan took an extraordinary step. He personally wrote to the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole requesting that Flores Rosales never be released from prison. Detective Corey Biggs spent 3 years building the case against Flores Rosales. Her work was so thorough, so dedicated, that she received a Community Justice Award in 2023. The investigation required painstaking attention to detail. Medical records, phone records, witness interviews, building a timeline of abuse, documenting every injury, proving beyond reasonable doubt that this mother systematically tortured her own child. Norland was 6 years old. He should have been in 1st grade. He should have been learning to read. He should have been playing with friends. Instead, he was locked away from food, beaten regularly, burned, strangled, and ultimately killed by the woman who gave birth to him. The refrigerator with the bicycle lock became a symbol of the case. There was plenty of food in that home. Flores Rosales and other family members were well fed. But Norland was starving. He was denied the basic human necessity of food as a form of punishment and control. 99 injuries. Let that sink in. 99 separate injuries in various stages of healing. That means ongoing, repeated, systematic abuse over weeks or months. It means every day brought new pain. Every day brought new trauma. Every day, Norland woke up knowing his mother would hurt him again. And through it all, DCFS had been notified. Neighbors had called. Reports had been filed. Investigations had been opened and closed. And Norland remained in that home until he died. Reina Flores Rosales is currently incarcerated at Utah State Correctional Facility. She's serving 5 years to life, plus consecutive sentences. With Judge Hogan's letter to the parole board requesting she never be released, there's a strong possibility she'll die in prison. But no amount of prison time will bring Norland back. No sentence will erase those 99 injuries. No punishment will undo the torture that little boy endured. The case sparked renewed calls for reform at DCFS. How many reports does it take before action is taken? How many neighbors have to call before someone investigates thoroughly? How many injuries does a child need before they're removed from danger? Norland Cruz deserved better. He deserved a mother who loved him. He deserved food when he was hungry. He deserved safety. He deserved life. Instead, he got a locked refrigerator, 99 injuries, and a death at age 6. Case 7. Nicole Lester. For at least 1 month before killing her 4-year-old daughter, Nicole Lester researched how to do it. Her internet search history told the story of premeditated murder unfolding in real time. How do you break a neck? She searched. Then, where's the best place to hit a person with an axe? She studied medical diagrams showing a child's chest and ribs. She read news coverage of cases where children were murdered. Finally, she asked the search engine, is it easier to kill a toddler than an adult? The final search came December 30th, 2019. One day before she murdered her daughter Lainey Reese Voss. Nicole Terry Lester lived in West Valley City, Utah. She had 2 children, a 6-year-old son and 4-year-old Lainey. She had a documented criminal history involving domestic violence dating back to 2011, including assault charges and court-ordered mental health treatment. New Year's Eve 2019. Approximately 5 o'clock in the morning, Lester took Lainey to a basement room. She brought a ceramic kitchen knife with her. The medical examiner later documented over 30 cutting wounds on the child's body. Deep lacerations centered on her heart pierced her lungs and spine. But perhaps most heartbreaking were the defensive wounds on Lainey's arms, hands, and shoulder. The 4-year-old had been alert and fighting back against her own mother. Lainey fought for her life. She tried to protect herself. She struggled. But she was 4 years old, and her mother had a knife. After the murder, Lester walked to a neighbor's home. She borrowed their phone. She confessed, I just killed my daughter. When police arrived, Nicole Lester sat on her porch in bloody clothing. She stated clearly, I need to be arrested now. Her 6-year-old son was found sleeping upstairs, unharmed. He'd slept through his sister's murder. The case was straightforward in terms of evidence. Lester confessed immediately. The physical evidence matched her confession. The search history showed premeditation. The only question was, why? Lester was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, a mental illness combining symptoms of schizophrenia and mood disorders. Defense attorneys argued she was not guilty by reason of insanity. Prosecutors acknowledged her mental illness but argued she understood right from wrong and planned the murder in advance. In February 2022, Lester pleaded guilty with mental illness to aggravated murder. The plea avoided a trial while acknowledging her psychiatric condition. Judge Heather Brereton imposed a sentence of 25 years to life. In her ruling, Judge Brereton determined that while Lester currently had mental illness, the legal standard was not met for placement at Utah State Hospital rather than prison. She would serve her sentence in the general prison population with access to mental health treatment. The case raises difficult questions about mental illness and criminal responsibility. Lester clearly had serious psychiatric problems. Her search history also clearly showed planning and deliberation. She researched methods. She chose a weapon. She acted at a time when her son was asleep and wouldn't interfere. She knew enough to walk to a neighbor's house afterward and turn herself in. Does mental illness excuse murder? Does it mitigate it? What's the balance between punishment and treatment? Lainey Reese Voss was 4 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She should be starting elementary school now. She should be learning to read. She should be playing with friends. She should be alive. Instead, she's dead because her mother spent a month researching how to kill her, then did exactly that. Nicole Lester is currently incarcerated, serving 25 years to life. She'll be eligible for her first parole hearing eventually, but given the nature of her crime and the premeditation involved, she's likely to serve decades behind bars. Lainey's 6-year-old brother witnessed none of the murder but lost his sister and his mother on the same night. He's being raised by other family members now, growing up with the knowledge that his mother killed his sister. The case shocked West Valley City. Neighbors described the family as quiet. No one suspected violence. No one knew what was happening inside that home. The internet searches were only discovered after the murder when police seized Lester's electronic devices and examined her search history. How many times did Lester type those searches? How many times did she read about breaking necks and hitting with axes and the anatomy of a child's chest? How many times did she think about it before she finally acted? And most importantly, could anything have stopped her? Lester had court-ordered mental health treatment from prior domestic violence cases. She was supposed to be getting help. But clearly, whatever treatment she received wasn't sufficient to prevent her from planning and executing her daughter's murder. Lainey Reese-Voss died on New Year's Eve, 2019. The decade ended. A new decade began, and a 4-year-old girl was gone forever. Case 8. Nicole Leah Scott. Judge Camille Nieder looked at the defendant and said words that would echo through Utah's legal system. This was a prolonged death camp, much like the concentration camps during World War II. She was describing what 12-year-old Gavin Peterson endured in his own home at the hands of his stepmother, Nicole Leah Scott. The judge identified Scott as the architect of Gavin's destruction. July 9, 2024. West Haven, Utah. 12-year-old Gavin Peterson was found unresponsive. By the time authorities arrived, his internal organs had shut down completely. He was beyond saving. The cause of death: complications from sepsis, pneumonia, dehydration, and untreated infections. But those were just medical terms for torture. The investigation revealed text messages between Scott, Gavin's father Shane Peterson, and older brother Tyler Peterson. The messages documented a conspiracy to systematically abuse and starve Gavin to death. Gavin was confined to a bare room with no carpet, no bed, no bedding. He was forced to stay within a box marked by blue tape on the floor measuring less than 3 feet square. He wore only a heavily saturated diaper. Surveillance cameras monitored him constantly. The family gave Gavin only 1/3 cup of water per day. He was fed bread with mustard once daily. Sometimes he wasn't fed at all. Text messages showed Scott writing, "He does this shit for attention and I hate it, and it makes me hate him more and more." At school, before he was withdrawn for homeschooling, cafeteria workers found him eating out of the trash. They started paying for his meals. School cafeteria workers saw what was happening. They saw a starving child. They tried to help by feeding him. But eventually, Scott withdrew Gavin from school entirely in May 2023, claiming she would homeschool him. After that, no one outside the family saw him again until the day he died. DCFS had received 7 reports about Gavin between 2019 and 2023. 7 separate times, concerned individuals reported suspected abuse. 3 investigations were opened. All 3 were closed without intervention. After a May 2023 investigation was closed as unsupported, Gavin disappeared into that house. 2 months later, he was dead. The surveillance footage Scott thought she deleted was recovered by forensic investigators. It showed the torture in detail. A 12-year-old boy confined to a taped box. A child in a diaper begging for water. A son starving to death while his family ate regular meals. Text messages revealed the family's mindset. They viewed Gavin as a problem to be controlled, not a child to be loved. They discussed his punishment. They coordinated his confinement. They watched him deteriorate and did nothing. When Gavin finally died, his body was so ravaged by neglect that the medical examiner cataloged multiple causes of death. His organs had failed. His immune system had collapsed. Infections had taken over. Dehydration had devastated his system. He'd essentially been tortured to death slowly over months. Nicole Leah Scott was charged with murder, aggravated child abuse, and obstruction of justice. Shane Peterson and Tyler Peterson were charged as accomplices. In May 2025, Scott pleaded guilty as part of a plea agreement. The Scott Judge Claudia Laycock sentenced Jeanette Kilpack on January 12, 2006. Just as Jeanette Kilpack was trying to teach Cassandra consequences, today there are consequences for Jeanette's actions, the judge stated. She imposed a sentence of 1 to 15 years. Jeanette served her sentence at Utah State Prison. She appealed her conviction to the Utah Supreme Court, arguing various legal errors. In 2008, the Utah Supreme Court unanimously upheld her conviction. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury had spoken. Justice was served. In January 2012, after serving approximately 6 years, Jeanette Kilpack was released on parole. She'd earned her high school diploma in prison. She'd completed programs. She'd served her minimum sentence. The parole board determined she was eligible for release. The case sparked national attention. Media outlets across the country covered Utah's first water intoxication homicide. The story raised awareness about this unusual form of abuse. Other cases in other states followed. Water intoxication became a recognized method of child abuse that medical professionals and investigators learned to identify. But all the national attention, all the awareness, all the education couldn't bring Cassandra back. She was 4 years old when she died. She'd been adopted into what should have been a loving home. Instead, she found abuse, torture, and ultimately death by water. The defense claimed Janit was following therapist recommendations for discipline. Prosecutors disputed this, arguing no licensed therapist would ever recommend restraining a child and forcing them to drink water. The jury sided with prosecutors. Cassandra's death was preventable if Janit had stopped when the child first struggled, if Richard had intervened instead of helping, if anyone had called for help before it was too late. But they didn't. They continued the punishment until Cassandra's brain swelled and she stopped breathing. In 2004, before the trial, neighbors and friends told media outlets they'd seen warning signs. They'd heard concerning things about the household. They'd noticed Cassandra seemed fearful, but no one had reported it to authorities. No one had intervened. The Kilpack case became a cautionary tale about the dangers of extreme discipline, the importance of recognizing abuse, and the need for swift intervention when children are at risk. It showed how quickly a punishment can turn fatal. It demonstrated how parents can justify horrific abuse as discipline. It proved that adoptive parents can be just as dangerous as biological ones. Janit Kilpack is free now, released from prison over a decade ago. She served her time. She satisfied the legal system. But Cassandra Tane Kilpack is still dead, killed by the woman who was supposed to protect her, forced to drink water until her brain swelled and she died. Water intoxication. It sounds almost benign. It sounds like an accident. But when you tie a 4-year-old to a stool and force a gallon of water down her throat while she struggles and vomits and begs you to stop, it's not an accident. It's murder. Case 10, Shelley Flemel. June 5, 1994. Ogden, Utah. A massive search was underway. 4-year-old Courtney Jo Flemel had disappeared from Liberty Park. Her mother, Shelley, reported the child missing. Hundreds of volunteers joined search parties. Police pursued leads. The community rallied around a grieving mother whose daughter had been kidnapped. Except there was no kidnapping. Shelley Flemel had killed her daughter and hidden the body. The entire missing child case was an elaborate lie. June 4, 1994. Shelley Flemel was deep into a methamphetamine binge. She'd been using for days. Her judgment was impaired. Her temper was explosive. Her 3-year-old daughter, Courtney Jo, did something that angered her. In a fit of rage, Shelley struck the child in the neck. By the next morning, Courtney Jo was dead. Shelley had a choice. Call 911. Report what happened. Face the consequences. Or hide the evidence. She chose to hide it. She took her daughter's small body to Ogden City Cemetery and concealed it under a bush. Then she went home and fabricated a kidnapping story. She told police Courtney Jo had disappeared from Liberty Park while they were playing. Someone had taken her daughter. They needed to find her. The false report triggered a massive response. Police mobilized. Volunteers organized search parties. Media covered the story extensively. Hundreds of people spent days looking for Courtney Jo, believing she'd been abducted and might still be alive. 3 days later, a search dog found Courtney Jo's body at the cemetery. The kidnapping story fell apart immediately. Police brought Shelley in for questioning. During interrogation, Shelley initially told police, "I'll make you happy. I killed her." She later claimed it was an accident, that she hadn't meant to kill Courtney Jo. But the evidence suggested otherwise. The neck injury was severe. The concealment was deliberate. The false report was calculated. The investigation revealed a disturbing history. In 1989, Shelley's 7-month-old son Tyler had been hospitalized with skull fractures and brain bleeding. Shelley had given up parental rights to that child after the investigation. Now, 5 years later, another child was dead. Detective Shane Miner spent over a year building the case against Shelley Flemel. He investigated her background. He documented the methamphetamine use. He interviewed witnesses. He built a timeline. He proved that warning signs had been missed. DCFS had received complaints about Shelley's home before Courtney Jo's death. Investigators had visited and seen clear signs of drug use. But no action had been taken to remove the child. Courtney Jo remained in that home until her mother killed her. In March 1996, Shelley Flemel pleaded guilty to murder. She accepted responsibility for killing her daughter rather than going to trial. On April 26, 1996, she was sentenced to 5 years to life in prison. At her 2015 parole hearing, Shelley expressed remorse. "I just remember losing my temper," she told the board. She'd earned her high school diploma while incarcerated. She'd completed a culinary arts certificate program. She'd participated in substance abuse treatment. She presented herself as rehabilitated. The parole board has considered her case multiple times. She's appeared before them repeatedly, seeking release. As of the most recent available information, she remains under the jurisdiction of the Utah Department of Corrections. The Shelley Flemel case was significant for several reasons. It occurred in 1994, making it one of the earliest cases in this documentary. It involved methamphetamine addiction, which would become a recurring theme in Utah maternal homicides. It demonstrated how drug addiction impairs judgment and increases the risk of violence. And it showed how a parent can manipulate an entire community with a false story to cover up murder. Hundreds of volunteers searched for Courtney Jo. People took time off work. They walked through parks and neighborhoods. They checked dumpsters and abandoned buildings. They looked in places no one should have to look for a missing child. All based on a lie. The search dog that found Courtney Jo's body ended the charade. Dogs don't lie. Dogs follow scent trails. The dog led investigators straight to the cemetery where Shelley had hidden her daughter's body under a bush. Courtney Jo was 3 years old when she died. She should have had decades of life ahead of her. She should have started school. She should have made friends. She should have grown up. Instead, she's buried in the same cemetery where her mother hid her body, a victim of methamphetamine-fueled rage and a parent who chose violence over love. Shelley Flemel's case also highlighted how prior incidents can predict future tragedies. Her infant son Tyler had skull fractures and brain bleeding in 1989. That should have been a massive red flag. That should have triggered intensive monitoring. That should have ensured Courtney Jo was protected. But it didn't. Shelley gave up parental rights to Tyler, had another child, and 5 years later that child was dead. The system failed Tyler. The system failed Courtney Jo. DCFS visited the home and saw signs of drug use, but didn't remove the child. Police had prior contact with the family, but didn't intervene effectively. Courtney Jo died despite all the warning signs. Detective Shane Miner's year-long investigation ensured Shelley Flemel faced justice. His dedication to the case, his thorough documentation, his careful building of evidence resulted in a conviction. Without his work, Shelley might have maintained her innocence. She might have claimed it was truly an accident. She might have avoided accountability. But Miner built an airtight case. The evidence was overwhelming. The timeline was clear. The neck injury was severe enough to prove it wasn't a simple accident. Shelley eventually pleaded guilty because she knew she couldn't win at trial. Courtney Jo Flemel has been gone for over 30 years now. The volunteers who search for her are older. The community that rallied around Shelley has moved on. Detective Miner has likely retired. But Courtney Jo is still dead, killed by her mother in a methamphetamine-fueled rage, hidden under a bush in a cemetery, and mourned by people who never knew the truth until it was too late. 10 cases. 10 mothers. Over 30 victims. Decades of tragedy across the state of Utah. From Megan Huntsman's 7 dead babies in boxes to Vallow Daybell's Doomsday cult murders. From Ruby Franke's YouTube abuse empire to son Cha Warhola's 15-year path to justice. From Jo Vanderlinden's foster care killing to Reina Flores Rosales' 99 injuries on a starving child. From Nicole Lester's month of murder research to Nicole Scott's concentration camp home. From Jenny Kilpack's water intoxication homicide to Shelley Flemel's methamphetamine-fueled rage. Each case is unique. Each crime had different circumstances. But patterns emerge when you look at them together. Substance abuse appears repeatedly. Megan Huntsman and Shelley Flemel were both deep into methamphetamine addiction when they killed. The drug impaired their judgment, increased their violence, and made them unable to care for their children properly. Mental illness factors prominently. Son Cha Warhola's severe schizophrenia caused a 15-year delay in justice. Nicole Lester's schizoaffective disorder played a role in her case. The question of mental illness versus criminal responsibility appears again and again. System failures are constant. In almost every case involving prolonged abuse, multiple reports had been made to DCFS before the fatal incident. Gavin Peterson's case saw 7 reports. Reina Flores Rosales had multiple neighbors reporting constant screaming. Jo Vanderlinden had 3 prior abuse complaints. Lucas Call's biological mother reported injuries for over a year. The system was notified. The system investigated. And the system failed. Religious extremism drove some of the most calculated crimes. Lori Vallow and Cha Daybell's doomsday beliefs led them to murder 3 people they designated as zombies. Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt believed they were casting out evil spirits through abuse. Distorted religious teachings became justification for torture and murder. Justice outcomes varied dramatically. Jeanette Kilpack served approximately 6 years. Nicole Lester got 25 years to life. Nicole Scott may never leave prison. Lori Vallow received multiple life sentences without parole. Cha Daybell received death. The sentences ranged from less than a decade to execution, depending on the circumstances, the evidence, and the judges involved. But every single case required dedicated investigators who refused to give up. Detective Corey Biggs spent 3 years building the case against Flores Rosales. Detective Shane Miner spent over a year on the Flemel case. The Sandy police detective who investigated Flores Rosales received a Community Justice Award for the incredible work. These cases were solved because law enforcement officers cared enough to pursue justice even when it was difficult. What can we learn from these 10 cases? First, warning signs matter. Neighbors reporting screaming. Teachers seeing children eat from trash. Medical professionals noting unusual injuries. When people report concerns, those reports must be investigated thoroughly and followed up aggressively. Second, prior incidents predict future tragedies. Shelley Flemel's infant son had skull fractures 5 years before she killed Courtney Jo. Lisa Vanderlinden had 3 prior abuse complaints before she killed Lucas Call. History matters. Patterns matter. Past behavior predicts future behavior. Third, substance abuse and child safety don't mix. Megan Huntsman killed 6 babies while deep in meth addiction. Shelley Flemel killed Courtney Jo during a meth binge. When parents are using hard drugs, children are at extreme risk. Fourth, mental illness needs treatment, not just documentation. Son Cha Warhola was clearly severely mentally ill, but it took 15 years to get her into treatment and through the legal system. Earlier intervention might have prevented those deaths. Fifth, closing investigations doesn't mean children are safe. Gavin Peterson's case had 7 reports and 3 investigations, all closed. 2 months after the last investigation closed, he was dead. Closing a case is not the same as solving a problem. These 10 cases collectively resulted in over 30 deaths, most of them children. 7 babies in Pleasant Grove. 3 people in the Vallow Daybell conspiracy. 2 children in Ruby Franke's home. 2 children killed by son Cha Warhola. Lucas Call, Norland Cruz, Lainey Reese Voss, Gavin Peterson, Cassandra Kilpack, Courtney Jo Flemel. Over a dozen more children severely abused but surviving. The human cost is incalculable. The trauma to surviving siblings. The guilt of family members who suspected something but didn't know what to do. The frustration of teachers and neighbors who reported concerns and watched nothing change. The pain of biological parents like Shelby Call who tried desperately to save Lucas and were silenced by the system. What's being done to prevent future tragedies? Utah has implemented some reforms after high-profile cases. DCFS policies have changed. Training has improved. Oversight has increased. But children are still dying. Cases like Gavin Peterson's in 2024 show the system still has massive failures. As you've listened to these 10 cases, you've heard the names of children who deserved better. Remember them. 7 babies who never got names in Pleasant Grove. J.J. Vallow who loved to dance. Tylee Ryan who protected her little brother. Russell and Eve Franke who survived but were tortured. James and Jean Marie Warhola who waited 15 years for justice. Lucas Call who ate from the trash because he was starving. Norland Cruz with 99 injuries. Lainey Reese Voss who fought back against her mother. Gavin Peterson in his taped box. Cassandra Kilpack forced to drink water. Courtney Jo Flemel hidden under a bush. Say their names. Remember their stories. Demand better from the systems that are supposed to protect children. If you found this documentary valuable, please hit that like button. Leave a comment telling us which case impacted you most or sharing your thoughts on how to improve child protection. Subscribe to Crime Unknown for more deep dives into solved cases that expose system failures and demand justice. And if you know a child who might be in danger, don't wait for someone else to act. Make the call. File the report. Be the person who speaks up. Because as we've seen in these 10 cases, silence kills. This has been Crime Unknown. 10 mothers, decades of tragedy, and lessons we cannot afford to ignore. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and never stop demanding justice for the most vulnerable among us.